Sony is deep into building the Sony Spider-Man universe with a bunch of solo villain movies under the studio's belt, but the next two movies, Madam Web and Kraven the Hunter, have been delayed until 2023 and 2024. However, fans are lucky that the movies are coming out at all. While Warner Bros. Is making headlines for canceling Batgirl, Sony has been canceling movies long before that. Given that Sony owns the rights to Spider-Man and all of the connected characters, the studio hasn't taken full advantage of that, but it isn't from lack of trying. Between a futuristic Spider-Man movie, tons of spin-offs, and even a Nicolas Cage-led threequel, some of these had the potential to be great. Spider-Man 4 Out of all the Sam Raimi films that almost happened, the development of Spider-Man 4 has been well documented at this point. While it would have followed one of the most badly received Spider-Man movies, the emo Peter Parker featuring Spider-Man 3, it actually had the most potential out of all of them to be great. Though all those Bruce Campbell cameos in the first three movies just seemed like gags, it was leading up to the actor revealing himself as Mysterio in the fourth movie. Director Sam Raimi's other plans for the film included casting John Malkovich as the Vulture and Anne Hathaway as Black Cat, making it the most stacked cast for any Spidey movie. However, Spider-Man 3 was negatively received, which seemingly soured Sony and Raimi's relationship. And, unfortunately, Spider-Man 4 is one of the best superhero movies never made. Venom in 2009, a Venom movie was in development but was cancelled in favor of a different direction for the character. However, while some would argue that the movie wasn't cancelled but was simply stuck in development hell for years and that it finally saw release in 2018, this is a completely different movie. Where 2018's Venom sees Tom Hardy as the titular anti-hero, a completely original take on the character's origin, the 2000s Venom was set to follow the Eddie Brock that was introduced in Spider-Man 3. According to Variety, director Gary Ross, who had previously directed Seabiscuit, was attached to direct the spin-off movie. As this was in development alongside Spider-Man 4, there could potentially have been a whole Spider-Man cinematic universe before the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Ghost Rider 3. It's surprising that the Ghost Rider series even got one sequel with Spirit of Vengeance, as the first movie was critically slammed and didn't even do all that well at the box office. The first movie made $228 million worldwide, via Box Office Mojo, which might sound like a lot but is an underperformance relative to its budget. Nevertheless, according to fandom, Sony made plans to develop a Ghost Rider 3. But it was eventually canned, presumably due to the even worse box office performance of Spirit of Vengeance. However, just because the movies have such a small fanbase doesn't mean that people don't want to see the character return. Fans want to see the character appear in the MCU, and some have suggested a Midnight Suns movie with Blade and Doctor Strange, since some believe that the team-up film may fill in one of the 8 untitled MCU projects for 2024. The Amazing Spider-Man 3-4. Like Spider-Man 3, The Amazing Spider-Man 2 was a box office success when simply looking at its worldwide gross of $709 million, via Box Office Mojo. But when each consecutive movie in the franchise has made less than the last for 7 years, it's time to reevaluate. The biggest problem with the 2014 sequel is that it was trying to set up too many sequels and spin-offs, and as a result, audiences were fatigued by the web slinger and everything related to him. According to The Hollywood Reporter, Sony had hired writers for both the third and fourth movies in the series, but that came to an end after Sony struck a deal with Marvel Studios. While it worked out for the best with Spider-Man being inducted into the MCU, some fans think Amazing Spider-Man 2 is underrated and were heartbroken by the news. Sinister Six. It was reported by Variety that, along with two Amazing Spider-Man films, Sony had greenlit a Sinister Six solo film and even had a scheduled release date of 2016, which would most likely have led to the events of Amazing Spider-Man 4. But the project was again affected by the deal with Marvel Studios. Given that the whole of Amazing Spider-Man 2 was one huge tease for the Sinister Six, it's a setup that was never paid off. Though fans got closure for some elements of the Amazing Spider-Man series, as many of the characters returned in the multiversal Spider-Man, No Way Home, fans will never get closure for Norman Osborn. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 was setting up so many story arcs, but Norman Osborn's grand plan was the most exciting part of the franchise. Though this did not transpire, the positive response to Andrew Garfield's return led to many fans wanting The Amazing Spider-Man 3, even speculating on potential villains. Silver Black has been in development hell for years. It was interestingly the first movie based on Spider-Man characters that had never been featured in any of the major movies. In that respect, the studio might have thought that it was too much of a risk with audiences not knowing who the characters are and that it might raise confusion about how it fits into any one of the cinematic universes. According to Variety, the movie was cancelled in favor of making a solo film for each character, which haven't seen the light of day either. Either way, it still sounds like the film could have been a great movie full of cool effects. The movie could always fit in with the Sony Spider-Man Universe (SSU) that the studio is building with Bill and solo movies, but audiences will be getting Madam Web and Kraven the Hunter instead. Spider-Man 2099. According to Movie Pilot, two Amazing Spider-Man follow-ups and a Sinister Six movie weren't all the plans that Sony had at the time. In the midst of the grandiose attempt at world building, the studio also planned Spider-Man 2099. It's an extremely left-field development, as it wasn't connected to the Amazing Spider-Man series in any way. The project was about Spidey in the future, and a surprising amount of details have been revealed about it since its cancellation. 2099 would have featured Miguel O'Hara as Spider-Man instead of Peter Parker, and the end of the movie would have seen him teleport to the present day. Though fans didn't get to see this, Spider-Man 2099 was in Spider-Man, Into the Spider-Verse, and he'll no doubt have an even larger role in the sequel.